again to my channel. If you're new here, my name is Dr. Grace and I'm a family physician who moved from the UK to Alberta, Canada. Okay, so this video is about SEND provision. Somebody asked the question in the first video that I made about the differences between working in the UK and working in Canada. And it's going to be a super short video because the information is really out there. I'm going to put in some Reddit threads that I got information from as well as things that I've done for my patients as well. So basically, SEN is special education needs. So kids that have special educational needs, so kids with learning disabilities, so maybe they've got autism or they've got ADHD. These are the kids that need the SEN provision, basically. So Alberta government has, well, Alberta really loves kids. Let's start from there. So daycare is so much cheaper. I know that Albertans don't think so, and I'm talking based on somebody that has come from the UK, because we know how expensive these things are in the UK. In London, I was paying like £3,000 for my kids, for 2 kids, and my son was already 3, and I had the 15 hours free, and I was still paying £3,000, and it wasn't even full time. So the difference is insane. So my older son goes to a preschool and my younger son goes to a day home. So the day homes are so much cheaper, but it's like a few kids. So like maybe 10 kids or 15 kids maximum. And it's like varying ages. So it can be from 6 months to 5 years or whatever. Meanwhile, in the preschool, they've got age groups. So you've got like a 2 to 3 year olds, 3 to 4 year olds, 4 to 5 year olds. So school here starts at 5 years, unlike the 4 years in England. So if you're going to be 5 on the like in that year, then you get to go to kindergarten, right? So if you're born between January 1 and December 31 of say 2020, then you would start kindergarten this September 2025. Okay, that's how it works. Now, kindergarten is also very stressful. That's here in Alberta. This is all specific to Alberta. I don't know about other provinces, but kindergarten here is so stressful because it's not full-time. Like the government funded one is not full-time. So it is every other day, or it's 5 days, half day, depending on the school that you go to. Okay. Now, because this is stressful for parents, some parents just decide to pay so many preschools will continue into kindergarten and you just pay and that's it. So on average, day homes will cost less than $1,000 per month for full time. And from April, according to the email that I got and the letter that I got from the government, from April, day homes will cost about $326 for full-time care, and the government will pay the difference, right? That's insanely cheap. Anyway, and then preschool kids, most preschools are between, I would say, 900 and maybe 12 to 1400. Most places are like less than that anyway. So I'll say $900 to $1,400 a month, right? And then the government, now from the letter that I got, whatever you were paying before, now you pay $100 less for preschool, right? Now, say this child has a special need. So say they're autistic, for example, right? The government has what's called a PUF funding. That's PUF, PUF funding. And PUF funding is when the government funds the school to do some additional help for the child, okay? So say the child needs one-to-one support in their daycare or their day home. Where's that money going to come from? Because these aides cost about $20 to $25 an hour, and they're going to spend 8 hours with your child. The day home can't afford that. The daycare can't afford that. So through PUF funding, then the government would be able to assign somebody to help you in your daycare or your day home, to help your child in your daycare or your day home. There are also special schools, at least here in Calgary, there are also special schools. So there's Pace Kids, there's Renfrew Educational Services, there's Providence School. These are all special needs schools that are funded by PUF funding, right? But for you to get into these schools, your child needs a diagnosis, and they are not going to take an international diagnosis. Your child needs a diagnosis from a pediatrician here in Canada. If they don't have an established diagnosis, if it's just you saying, oh, my child doesn't have speech, or my child is, blah, 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 they just need some extra help, they're not going to get into that school, and they're going to struggle in mainstream education, okay? So if you've got a child, if you're still in the UK and you haven't moved and this is a deal breaker for you, then as soon as you land in Canada, you need to find a family physician to refer you to a pediatrician who is then going to make that diagnosis, and you can then use that to get it into these schools. Okay, so this is like, without the diagnosis, literally you can't do anything. You can't do anything without the diagnosis. Okay, if you're already in Canada and you don't have a family doctor, you can get a referral from a walk-in clinic. Just get on the pediatrician wait list as soon as possible. If you're already in Canada, I know that, and if you're already in Calgary specifically, and you are on a very long wait list, so like Kiwi Pediatrics, this is all from professional experience. Kiwi Pediatrics and Kaleidoscope Pediatrics are currently booking about 10 months in advance for these services. But there's a new pediatric place on the block called MJ Pediatrics, and usually the patients that I've referred have been seen within 2 months. So get a specialist to refer you to MJ Pediatrics, and then you can get the ball rolling and get your child the help that they need. Okay, so that's PUF funding. Some kids don't need to go to special schools, they just need extra support at school. So say they need somebody to make sure that they sit down to eat their meals because running around is a hazard, then the nursery can employ an additional aide through PUF funding. Or they can, say your child is speech delayed, but they're not autistic, they're just speech delayed, or say the child has pronunciation issues that they just need an extra speech and language therapy for. First of all, speech and language is a self-referral in Alberta and in Calgary specifically, but there can also be a speech therapist in your child's daycare that will help, like they will come in not just for only your child, but for other children who also have the same issues at that daycare, and provide those services. That's PUF funding. But PUF funding cannot be double booked. So if your child is already going to a special school, like those ones I mentioned earlier, then they're not going to get PUF funding in their normal daycare. So those special schools, unfortunately, because of the funding, they can only run half days. So you still need somewhere for your child to stay the rest of the half day. So most children will do half day in the special schools and half day in a regular daycare. But if they're in a regular daycare and they go to that special school, they can't access PUF funding for both. Okay, which brings me to my next funding ability, or funding whatever, which is called FSCD funding. So that is family, I don't remember what it's called now. I'm going to look it up real quick. It's called Family Support for Children with Disabilities. So this is more of a longer term thing. Most funding will still end when the child gets into grade school, or when they are 6. Most of the funding will help, but sometimes FSCD extends a bit longer. Depends on the child's circumstances, because FSCD is not only for like learning disabilities and autism and ADHD, it's also for motor disabilities. So children with cerebral palsy, children with these weird and wonderful syndromes that are severely disabled. It's for all disabilities. But to get into FSCD funding, it takes about a year. Okay, unless the child has proven to not be safe. So a child who is eating dangerous things like stones or jewelry or something that can harm them, or whatever, as long as the child is a danger to themselves, then you can be bumped up on the FSCD list. It's still not an exhaustive thing, but you can get bumped up the list. Okay, but again, you need to see a pediatrician for this. You need to apply for the FSCD funding yourself. Your child's daycare and your pediatrician can help you with this. Okay, now FSCD funding provides funding for other things. So like if say that child needs an aide at home, FSCD would fund some specific hours depending on how disabled that child is for an aide to come and support at home. Say the parent needs respite, so say they have an emergency and they need to go away for some reason. If they can find an FSCD approved person who can watch their child, FSCD funds I think 24 hours every 6 months or every year. I don't know for certain, but every FSCD package is different, right? So it very much depends on your child and their capabilities. Okay, so a child who is wheelchair bound will need a bigger package than a child who just has autism or severe ADHD that's not letting them function. Okay, so I hope that's easily understandable. Unfortunately, after after the age of 6, when your child gets into grade school, most of this is personally funded. There are lots of schools. There's I think it's New Heights. I think it's called New Heights in the northeast of Calgary, I believe, which is a really good school. And I think they go from grade 1 to grade 12, if I'm not mistaken. Always do your own research, of course. And if you got questions, I can answer them in the comment section as well. But those schools are more private paid. The government still subsidizes a little bit, but most of it is on you. And you're looking at around, I would say, $15,000 per year per child for those special education needs children. Okay, so I'm just being honest here and realistic. That's how much it would cost every single year. Now, as a physician, you can totally afford this, but also you can get this refunded as disability tax credit for your child. So the school will give you a form or whatever saying that this $15,000 that you've paid is for therapy for this child, so you don't get taxed on that. So you get a tax refund on that money. So like I said, Alberta loves families. It's just that it's overstretched, and there's a lot more people than services currently, but they still try their best, I would say. So yeah, you get disability tax credit, you get PUF funding, and you get FSCD funding if you've got a child with special needs. Okay, the first step is to see the pediatrician. There's no other way about it. There's no quicker way. Get the family doctor to refer you to a pediatrician and get a diagnosis from the pediatrician, and you're good to go. Okay, also, these services are only available to people with PR or Canadian citizens. So if you came here on a work permit, I guess you can't really do much until you transfer that work permit to your PR, which I think takes 6 months to a year, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, the funding will only apply to PR and citizens of Canada. I hope I've been able to answer those questions. If you've got any questions, as always, leave them in the comment section below, and I will see you in my next video. My next video, I'm gonna try to let it, because I get asked, like, take me from start to end on how to move to the UK. I'm gonna try, if I can learn how to make that bobblehead video where I just show you my screen and you just do things after that, then that would be helpful. Otherwise, I will just narrate it with my mouth, and when I learn that, then I'll do it. But I'm hoping that will be my next video, is a step-by-step process on how to move from the UK to Canada as a family physician. Like, I will go like step 1, step 2, okay? All right, see you, bye.